In this section, we will cover the if conditional statement. This is fairly simple. There is an if-else clause within which if the condition within the parentheses is true, you would execute the statements within the braces. Else, you would execute the commands within the else section of the if-else condition. So what you have here is we declare a variable called food and we assign it the string called pi, and what we check for is if food equals pi. And remember, in JavaScript this is different than C, C++, or Java, whereas in the other languages you have two equal signs. In JavaScript you have to have three equal signs. So if food equals pi, document.write will display on the screen food choice is pi, else the condition is false. We would write you like something other than pi. So let's run this. We see that food does equal pi because that's what we set it up to be, and this command here gets executed. This statement we should call it. And if I were to go ahead and change this to food equals ice cream, the condition would at this point turn out to be false, which means the else clause will actually go ahead and be executed. Let's try and see how this works. There you go. You like something other than pi. And in general, you would have a condition here. Let's just call it condition. And you would have a set of statements. Let's just call these statements. And else you would have other statements. So this is your general form of other statements if false. So this is your generic conditional if statement if you were to memorize it, let's say. We will now cover another conditional statement called the while loop. So we will call this the while loop. And again, we use two forward slashes to represent comment in JavaScript. Let's declare a variable called value, which we set it to be equal to 1. And we then write a while condition where the value is not equal to 100. And we say, while the value is not equal to 100, basically print a value of that number and then increment the value. So let's run this and see what happens. There you go. So basically what we are doing here is we're declaring a variable called value, which is equal to 1, and we enter the while loop. When we enter the while loop, the value is equal to 1, and we check. If the value is not equal to 100, execute the set of commands within this set of braces from the beginning and the end. And so the first thing that happens is document.write writes the value 1, which you see outputted here, and then we increment the value, and that's the same as if you were to write value equal to value plus 1. So those two things are equivalent. Let's just say equivalent. And the while loop gets executed, and it just keeps on doing this until this loop gets executed until the value is not equal to 100. And as soon as the value is equal to 100, this condition is no longer true and we exit the loop. Let's say we wanted to start with 100 and decrement the value. What happens here, this is equal to value minus 1, and what we say is value is not equal to 1, do a count down, and we run this again, and now we are counting down. And if we wanted value is, sorry, let's do this. While value is greater than 1, greater than or equal to 1, now we have 1 included as well. So it all depends on what condition you put here. If you wanted 1 to show up, you would do values is greater than or equal to 1. If you didn't want 1 to show up, you just do values greater than 1, and now 1 is no longer included here. In addition, the value minus minus is the same as value is equal to value minus 1, which is a decrement counter. With the while statement, you basically do a test at the beginning of the while statement and then decide whether the statements need to be executed or not. Let's say we now wanted to show you the for loop. The for loop is fairly simple. You basically use this following format. For, let's say we're declaring a counter variable equal to 1, and we want that counter variable to have a conditional, which is for counter less than 100. You would want to increment the counter, and within that set of braces you want certain things executed. So let's say you want to write the value of the counter. Document.write counter. And what this does is basically the for loop simply creates or declares a variable called counter, and you can increment up to 100 and just print this. So this actually shows you how to go ahead and set up a set of statements to be repeated over and over again for a certain duration. Now this here tells you how that counter can be incremented. If you, let's say, wanted to start from 100 and want it to be counters greater than. So now we've covered all the conditional loops, as well as the do while loops, as well as the while loops for you, and hopefully this has given you some ideas about how various control mechanisms exist within JavaScript. Thank you.